This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. If you don't already subscribe to Paramount Plus, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/Paramount Plus. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
And I'm LT.
And tonight we will be covering the season finale, season 2, episode 10 of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled First Contact. We want to mention that this podcast is supported by our Patreon supporters. You can become a supporter by going to patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. And we've been putting out an early access version of the podcast to Patreon subscribers. And sorry, regular listeners. So I owe you an episode. So hopefully I'll get that out Saturday. That's what I'm hoping for. But the Patreons, they've already gotten their episode. So sorry, but anyway, it's not intentional. It's just they get a different version than you guys get, and I was able to get that one out and couldn't get this one out. So, but anyway, hopefully I will be caught up because I won't have to do any more after this. Anyway, well, we're gonna tweak this going forward. And before anyone asks me, will the Prodigy do the episodes? I don't know. That has to be something that we work out. So I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. But what we'll try to do is if they don't go out to the feed early, they'll at least go out to the feed. So one way or the other. But anyway, it only costs $1 a month minimum to get those episodes. So again, patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. So before we get started with this week's episode, we have some feedback for the last several episodes from Brian from Colorado and that guy over there at the end. So let's get started with the first bit, talking about the first episode that he's going to talk about. And Kyle, I'm going to send it over to you.
Awesome. All right. Hi, Brian, Kyle, and LT. Once again, I find myself very late giving feedback, and I do apologize. I greatly appreciate your podcast, and I kept up listening to it. Season 2, episode 7, he says, I give this episode, Where Pleasant Fountains Lie, a 6.8 out of 10 Combs cameos. First and foremost, this episode features Jeffrey Combs. I love every minute of the evil computer plot. I really enjoy seeing the Easter eggs of the Daystrom Institute on Okinawa Island, just as it appeared in Picard. The only criticism I can say about the evil computer part of the episode is that I doubt an all-powerful computer would require a physical wire to connect to a network and do its damage. He says, so I'll deduct 0.2 points for that. Not good enough item. Second, the entire plot about Billups was very weak. I must admit, at first I really liked the idea of an episode about a supporting character, which is very much a tradition of other past Trek series. However, the Renaissance themed ship was not compelling, and worse, the entire virginity plot element was awkward. The threesome scene with the guards was inappropriate, especially for kids, so I deducted 3 points just for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I found it uncomfortable myself. So I will agree with you on that. I just didn't care for that part of the episode at all. And
yeah, same.
I'm thinking that the evil computers not being able to do their thing is because they had their wireless cards taken out.
Never underestimate the power of LAN cables.
Yeah, so that's my thought. But yeah, I mean, there just has to be a suspension of disbelief there. I'm thinking that they're kind of in a little, jail cell type. They're in a mini brig, each of them, so they're impervious to, it's like what putting a cell phone in a lead box or something, prevents the signals from going through. Well, something similar. So
they're in a DMZ.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So next,
LT.
Okay, that'd be season 2, episode 8. I give season 2, episode 8, I Excretes 6.9 out of 10 nostalgic holodeck recreations. It was overall a great episode full of Easter eggs that I enjoyed. Way too many yeses to list here, and I would have rated it a 9.9 had it not been for the big no that they should have left out the naked time section. It loses 3 points just for that scene alone, and I was tempted to deduct more. I actually had to stop and fast forward past it just so my kids wouldn't see it. This was more uncomfortable for us than any of the other questionable sex scenes in the series so far. Yes, worse than the Magato scene. Otherwise, the rest of the episode, without that scene, was nearly perfect. I deducted 0.1 points for the lack of a montage showing us more vignettes about the holodeck simulations the crew were doing. I agree with Dwight that the Pandronian, first seen in TAS, also reminds me of the Fireys from Labyrinth. I also agree with all of you that seeing Boimler save the ship with his continued Borg simulations was impressive and shows how far his character has grown.
Yeah. I mean, I get the whole, I get why that would be uncomfortable for you. And I don't know. I guess for me, I found the Mugatos more uncomfortable because maybe it was more like, okay, when I see that scene, it's more nuanced, I guess you could say. Like for children, that it might be easier for children to not get all of the references there. Whereas in the naked time thing, it's more blatant, right? So maybe that's that's why that bothers you more, because it clearly was more blatant. But for me, it was more, I don't know, just like nonsensical. It just that it just didn't bother me at all. So, but I get it.
I think
Well,
yep,
actually,
I do too.
I think I was harder on the Billups scene more so than the naked time scene, only because of him in the bathroom trying to psych himself up.
Yeah. I agree. All right. And for the last episode, season 2, episode 9, I give season 2, episode 9, Ouij Douge, 9.9 red alarms. Or should I say, red alarm?
Red alarm.
Red alarm. This was as perfect an episode as I can imagine. More like this, please. He says his yeses. Seeing the lower decks on Klingon, Vulcan, and even Pakled and Borg ships was a great idea. How the separate plot lines converged at the end was well executed and didn't lean on crass humor or vulgarity. This fills in the gaps in our knowledge about what living on Klingon and Vulcan ships is really like. One Easter egg not mentioned on the podcast yet was how T'Lyn looked almost exactly like Valeris on Star Trek VI, especially her hairstyle. She reminded me much more of Valeris than Spock. I also loved that Boimler was wearing Go Climb a Rock shirt, just like Kirk in Star Trek V, one of my favorite films in the franchise. And they played the Star Trek II music during the battle scene. Well, to that. I mean, she may look like Valeris, but she didn't really remind me of Valeris because Valeris was a traitor. So, that's that's all I have to say about that. So, his nose. The Bridge Buddy plotline was less strong, and in particular, the Hawaiian depictions were stereotypical and a slight bit off-putting. I deducted 0.1 points due to these weaker elements of the episode, but that's really nitpicking.
And I was going to say, I reminded Brian that, or our Brian, that Brian from Colorado, I believe, was formerly known as the artist Brian from Hawaii. So I suppose that was hitting a little bit close to home.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably. And then he says it's not good enoughs. He says, I can't think of any not good enoughs this week. So anyway, Brian, we always tell people, if you have feedback and it's, it doesn't make the deadline, send it in anyway. We'll cover it whenever it does come in. So thank you for honoring that, and we appreciate it. And for everyone else out there, don't feel, but I will say, if you have feedback for this episode, you're probably not going to hear it. So,
unless we were like absolutely overwhelmed with an ocean of feedback.
Yeah. If we
do our mid-season Lower Decks break show.
Yeah, and we've had that happen, but it's been very rare. I want to say we might have done that with the whole Negan plotline on The Walking Dead, but that's about the only time I can remember us doing something like that.
And just to amplify what Brian said, thank you so much for listening. It's good to know that even if you don't send in feedback, that you're still out there digging the podcast.
Yep.
But just like he said, I'll go ahead and say it. If you blow the deadline, man, go ahead and put it in. Go ahead and send us some feedback, because trust me, we'll work it in.
And I also want to say with that is, when I can't get the episodes out, in a decent amount of time, it just breaks my heart, because I try so hard to get it done. And, unfortunately, I'm on 3 projects at work this week. So it's hard to get, like I'm just spent at the end of, like, we recorded The Walking Dead on, was it Wednesday night we did it, or yeah.
It was,
and I was
Wednesday
like
night.
Punch drunk during the whole episode. I was just so tired, so anyway, I don't want to use that as an excuse. I'll try to do better. And the nice thing is that I've got 5 weeks off of podcasting on Star Trek before Discovery starts. So hopefully by then, my batteries will be recharged, and because we're going to have a lot to talk about when Discovery comes back.
Yep. And we're not doing 2 a week, so
right.
Yeah.
And Ruthie will return, which always brings up my energy level, especially if we end up recording in the morning. Anyway, so also I said earlier that we had feedback from this guy, and what I meant, of course, was Kyle missed the episode last week, so I wanted to get some kind of take on that episode because it was so good, especially. So, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, not more than what has already been said, but I mean, it was just really refreshing to me to be able to like we had like that they were showing, like they did that play on with like showing all the like lower decks of all the other, ships and like their species. And I just remember when I was watching it, and it just, I don't know, it's just like, it was just fun. Like that is like we're watching a show about the lower decks of Star Trek, and like, Starfleet. So for them to do that, I thought that was like very clever and awesome. And also, it's like, we want to see that kind of stuff. So that made me just make this like that episode even like better, just because it was like something that I didn't know that I wanted that I got.
All right. Good.
That was it.
All right. So now it's finally time to talk about the season finale. This episode, season 2, episode 10, First Contact, written by the showrunner Mike McMahon, directed by Jason Zurich, who previously directed I'm not going to go through the titles, but episode 1, 4, and 7 of this season. And the description from ParamountPlus.com is as follows. In the season 2 finale, the USS Cerritos is tasked to aid another starship on a first contact mission. Stardate 5810.6. The air date 11:06 Pacific Daylight Time, October 13th, 2021. The runtime, as predicted, was the longest episode of this season. I don't know for sure. I didn't look to see if it was longer than the season finale from season 1, but definitely the longest of season 2, 29 minutes and 33 seconds. Okay, so due to the rating I'm going to give, I am going to change the order that's in the document and give mine last. So, in fact, not just last, but after all of the episode ratings. So,
okay.
All right. So, Kyle, what would you give?
Yes.
First Contact.
Again, the way I want these seasons to end, if not like every episode like this, 10. If I wasn't so spiritually centered, I'd snap.
All right. LT?
Well, I gave it 10 out of 10. Doing it old school.
Indeed. All right. So, due to my audible that I just did, you'll see why. All right. The other Brian from Colorado says, I give season 2, episode 10, First Contact, 10 out of 10 cetacean crew members. This is a perfect episode for Lower Decks and reminds me in some ways of the best of both worlds on TNG, with the epic story and cliffhanger that calls into question the captain's future. The past couple of episodes demonstrate that Lower Decks can be funny, smart, and engaging while still adhering to Star Trek norms of decency. I really hope they drop the lowball humor in the future and stay on this more PG track. All right.
William from the internet says, for season 2 finale, First Contact, I'm giving it an 8. His blowhole's broken. Ending a great, funny, laugh-out-loud season on a cliffhanger is foul. I guess Wage Douge was the real season finale. At least we got to see the other Lower Deckers.
Not everybody likes a cliffhanger, I guess.
Yeah. Carol from Washington, D.C. gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Science officers like Jadzia Dax.
Who?
And I'm going to let you also give Wes.
And Wes from Minnesota said, this episode was fantastic. I enjoyed it. Felt like great Star Trek to me. I give this episode 9.8 stubborn hull plates out of 10.
And the reason why I'm doing my rating for the end is my rating is to be continued.
Oh gosh, you whatever. Where's your done?
I'll put that in post, but
and I'm shaking my head.
Anyway, it's an obvious TED, but yeah. I was like, what should I give this? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it should be. Yeah. So, all right. So, now that we're to be continued. But anyway, I love that they've brought back the to be continued. And I think it was very appropriate. And I was talking to Ruthie about this. Was it, I guess it was this today or was it yesterday? Yeah, I guess it was yesterday. And, I didn't see this cliffhanger coming. I was totally surprised by it. So, yeah, so it was quite a shocking turnaround, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to our yeses.
Yes!
And why don't you take the first one, Kyle?
Yep. Brian from Colorado, he says, it was really cool seeing one of the original Lower Deckers, Sonia Gomez, back as a captain. That welcome twist was very fitting for this show. I liked it when she advised a young ensign and indirectly alluded to her encounter with Picard spilling the drink on him. Captain Friedman's leadership skills were on full display in this episode, and she did a superb job inspiring the crew to come together to remove the whole plating and save the Archimedes, even if the technobabble explanation about why they had to do it was a bit weak. This even meant we finally got to see the Cretacean ops is like after decades of waiting. Very cool. I like that Boimler once again saves the day and showed he has the right stuff. And he's making the Freeman Day banner, just like the Picard Day banner, was funny too. Similarly, I liked how Tendi is going into the senior officer development program and that Merida made up with Jennifer. There's definitely something shady up with Rutherford's implant, which I'm sure will play out in the next season. Overall, this was an excellent episode, and I even like that there's a cliffhanger so that my kids who have grown up only with streaming TV can get a sense what it's like to wait many months for the conclusion of a story.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people just aren't used to this kind of thing. So
yeah, or like, having to basically, yeah, like they're starting to do that though with some streaming and like episodes, that it's like they don't only release them like Star Trek, where it's just like, oh, every week you get an episode, instead of being like Netflix where you're just like, oh, here's the whole entire season, binge it as you go. And so I'm hoping that that's definitely changing, because you think about like his kids are growing up to being like, oh, everything is just instant access and I don't have to wait. It's like we've had to wait years to get through like a story.
Mm-hmm.
And
like I don't know what the numbers are on Lower Decks, but at least within the fandom, I think Lower Decks has gotten to a point now where it's a hit. I mean, there are some people that are just like, oh, you ruined my Star Trek with, juvenile humor and stuff like that. But it's very much it's in reverence it's very much in reverence to the 80s and 90s Star Trek that we grew up on. So it's great.
And just like with any of the series, and just like with any series, it's like they tend to get their legs once they've had some tries.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, DS9 was not the best until way later, and it finally they kind of started figuring out. And plus, there was stuff going on behind the scenes,
I think it bears worth repeating that I said it in the very early days of season 1 of Lower Decks, that to me, this is the kind of humor that Trek fans make, the kind of jokes we make to each other.
Yeah.
So I think that it shows Mike McMahon as a fan, and he knows his canon, and I think it is funny, and there are jokes made, but I think that it is not done spitefully. I think it is lovingly done as somebody who sees the humor in things and loves the franchise.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would agree.
Okay. Now we got some feedback from Wes from Minnesota. And he says, the ending. I was hoping that Kurtzman Trek would try to do a cliffhanger ending on par with the Best of Both Worlds. I was expecting that to actually happen on Strange New Worlds first, but this is just as satisfying. Not to say that Strange New Worlds won't do it either and would welcome it if they did, but I loved it. A shock ending is what this era of Trek needed. Can't wait for season 3 for the resolution. I did enjoy the cameo by Lycia Naff as Sonia Gomez 32 years after season 2 of TNG. And I got the shade at Captain Picard too. Nice touch.
Yeah, there were a couple instances of where they threw Picard some shade. Wasn't just once. So like, for example, it was something Mariner said about some weirdo captain with riding crop or something like that.
That was no. That was Captain Styles.
Oh yeah.
If you remember, I think that was Star Trek V when they premiered the Excelsior.
Oh,
Captain Styles was the one with the swagger stick.
Oh, okay. Well, Brian, again, for the second week in a row, there's something you need
Incorrect.
Assist. LT is going to give the assist on the spot the reference section this week. So there's a couple things that I didn't get completely right that LT provided the correct answer. So some things I didn't notice.
There are some of my moments where there's some trivia that sticks and some trivia that I forget. That's one that I remember.
A lot of it.
Yeah. All right. Next is Carol from Washington, D.C. She says, I haven't had a chance to rewatch, but I just wanted to say that this was my favorite episode of the season by far. When the explosion happened and was headed towards Captain Gomez's ship, my kids and I were speechless. Yeah, it was that whole thing was quite good, which I will mention in my yeses. Lastly is William from the internet. He says, to see Captain Sonia Gomez after all these years. Yes, to Mariner finally opening up to her mother and her friends. Yep, I agree. And I think I mentioned that as well in a different way. So, okay, yep. Kyle?
Yep. Cetacean Ops. We finally get to see it.
Yes, finally.
Yeah. I just put down, it's like, their names, it was like Kimelu and Matt. And they obviously know Rutherford.
Yeah, they know Rutherford, all right.
Right. So it was like, okay, that's kind of like Rutherford got a lot of like kind of little hits of like getting more of a story or finding out that there's like other things going on.
Yeah.
So
like there's clearly going to be an expansion of his story in season 3.
Right.
Which is good.
For sure.
Other than just whales dig him.
And they definitely dig him. That's for sure. Both of them.
Yeah. But I love the part where it's like the tunnels, and I don't know, this is just like what just popped in my head. It was like, so there's like the tunnels that Boymes has to go like swim to like unlock the mag controls or whatever. And it was like, oh yeah, you have to go down here and like turn around here, blah, blah, blah. To me, it just popped in my mind that like that scene from Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Whereas at the end where like Gwen or Sigourney Weaver was like seeing the chompers. And so I don't know. I just thought it was funny that was like, of course, like this one thing that is going to be so important is like in Cetacean Ops, and it's like can only be operated by humans because the belugas it wasn't made for flippers. So it was like, okay, sure.
And I loved how the fact of, well, you guys swim, why don't you do it? And they were both like, both like, handles aren't made for flippers.
Yep. By the way, I wanted to just say before we get off the discussion of the belugas, it was so cute that they had uniforms too. You know, lieutenant junior grade science officers. I thought that was cool.
Yep.
Yep.
Everybody on the ship gets a uniform.
But it's so many years that we've heard about cetacean ops, and we finally get it. So kudos
Mm-hmm.
to Mike McMahon. He promised it, and we got it. So,
Yep. Well, the next was just like, I know I just said this before, but it's like the Rutherford, and then we're getting some vision of some elective surgery about, I guess, his implant or whatever. But it reminded me of just like all our Trek episodes that we've seen, like where like the crew gets abducted by some like aliens, and then like they don't know about it, because we've seen that in Voyager with the caretaker. There was a scene where it's like half the crew disappears, and Janeway's like, where are they, whatever, and they're like Tuvok or whatever was like waking up on the table and being operated on. And then like also Voyager, there was like aliens testing the crew directly, and they couldn't see them because they were just like some subspace like whatever distortion. But I don't know, I thought that whole scene where it's just like he's clearing out his memory because it's like full, and I guess he makes like triple copies of like all the episodes, or like the his memories with Tendi, which is cute. But then we get this like, oh, there's like the hidden little like whatever algorithm or whatever thing in there, and so now we definitely know there's much more to come about Rutherford.
indeed.
Yeah. I thought it was just a funny, because Rutherford's very just like he's like a very just soft spoken, but just like kind of like, it's not like he thinks about what he's saying, like in the sense of like he doesn't really crack jokes like you would think that like, oh, he's cracking a joke. He just says something and it's funny. But it was funny whenever like he figured out what was going, like how to solve the problem or whatever, that whole trying to save the ship. And he said, he's like, yeah, we have to drop our defenses like Mariner has to do with people.
Yeah.
But I just love the play and like how they wrote it and just how it was acted. It was just like, he just says it like nonchalant, and it was like really, really, really funny.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
And then last, okie dokie. And the last was just Tendi. It's like, it was great for one, seeing that she's like moving forward, like she's being rewarded for all the hard work and everything that she's doing. And so she's going into senior officer training or science officer training. But I also like the fact that she like took on Mariner to kind of basically like remind her that, it's like, her family is not just her mom, it was like her family is also them. And so I don't know, I felt that whole moment, and just doing it in the Tendi way was just like basically kind of reminding Mariner, saying, hey, you're not in this by yourself, and you're also not like the only person that can do anything. It's like, you have us. And then also it's like, and like, go apologize to your mom, quit being stubborn before she kills us.
Yep.
So
I agree with you 100%. I thought that Tendi was great in that moment, and it was good to see the moment where those four are family, right?
Yeah.
And we feel it, I think, and it's good that they feel it too. So
yeah, and that's a very, very Trek.
Sure.
I mean, to me, it's a very Trek thing, because we've grow up like watching these shows, and then it's like we see, like we started this like whole like Lower Decks, and we didn't know these characters, and we saw them kind of like in the beginning when they almost like didn't really know each other, to now here we are, and just like we do with Picard, Data, Riker, Troy, like everybody, it's like they're like almost family, and it's nice to see that they've kind of made the four of them into that same thing, and that just makes the stories and like the adventures that we're going to go on like even better.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
All right, LT, your turn.
Well, between all the listeners and you guys, you hit a lot of the things that I will echo as big yeses.
Well,
but I have
anything
a few,
you want to steal from mine, go right ahead.
But I have a few of my own. One big yes for me that's sort of an in joke was they mentioned the rubber ducky room.
Yeah, I didn't. That one was lost on me.
Yeah,
and I'm going.
Yep,
I'm going. How did I end up being the super obscure trivia Trek guy? But The deal with the rubber ducky room is apparently back during TNG. They released several of those big LCARS blueprints that you saw on screens and on walls on the bridge and different places.
Right.
And there are a lot of little funny Easter eggs in them.
Right.
And one of them is on the Enterprise D. If you actually got close and looked at all the decks, there was a rubber ducky on one of the decks. So
Yeah.
that was sort of like your ultimate Easter egg that they mentioned the rubber ducky room.
Yeah.
I thought it was really nice that they actually had stalk sleeves for Jennifer for her antennae on her EVA helmet.
Oh yeah.
That I'd mentioned before we got started recording that if you remember the helmet that Harry Mudd was wearing in Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, everybody wondered, well, what kind of helmet was that? Because it had horns on it. Well, it's an Andorian helmet.
Right.
So even though the Starfleet helmets seemed to have a lot more space inside for your noggin, her helmet actually had two little extensions for her antennae, which I thought was an excellent touch. We got to see our Kzinti crewmen again in several of the crowd scenes.
Yeah, we got to see a lot of the crew that we've seen in, other episodes. They showed up, maybe not speaking, but we saw them.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and that's cool because, I like the fact we're seeing some of the same faces in the crowd.
right.
Yeah.
I have to give a big yes, being a computer guy. I laughed a lot about Rutherford's pop-up error, especially that time that he had enough pop-up errors he couldn't see where he was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my final and biggest yes for this episode is major, major kudos to Titmouse Studios and the artwork.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this a few other places. I think we're going to get into some ship stuff and spot the references, but just the quality of the renders for the Archimedes and the scene at the space station and some of the scenes of space and the planet.
Right.
It was just so well done.
Right.
That it could have passed for TV grade episode stuff in the past, and this is computer generated and animated.
Yeah.
I can't go on enough about the quality of the ship renders. They're good enough to maybe even be Star Trek Online renders for the game. I mean,
Oh yeah.
the Archimedes looked
totally.
great.
It did.
It looks so good. I really, really hope they release a model of it. If they release a model of the Archimedes, I'm going to buy it.
And I thought the stripped down Cerritos looked really good too, for that matter.
Yeah.
It
that was
did.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a really amazing job with the backgrounds and the Federation ships.
And
we
go ahead.
We've commented about how you can sort of see a difference with, say, the Klingon ships and the Pakled ships not being as well drawn.
Yeah.
But, heck with that. The Federation ships were beautiful. I just can't say enough about how well those were done. And it contributed to the feeling of the episode for me that it was not just a cartoon.
Yeah. And well, we'll go more into the ships and the spot the references, but it wasn't just the Archimedes. We got multiple Federation, Starfleet ships that were in there as well, and we'll go into that. But also worth saying that the animation for the solar flare and the planetoid destruction and all of that was amazing too. Just the whole cataclysmic event was done really, really well, I thought. As far as my yeses, some things I wanted to bring up. I mean, we already talked about Sonia Gomez. I asked the question, does this mean that Freeman served on the Enterprise D? Because we know Gomez did.
Hmm.
We know Riker mentioned, something about Freeman being, his Chadich.
Hmm.
So makes me wonder, like, did Freeman at one point serve on the Enterprise D? Sounds like it. It serves that since then, Gomez has learned a thing or two to get to captain. Like, one thing that reminded me of how she was in the past. And there's a couple of there's one that I'll mention later, but one thing that I'll mention right now is, she basically lays things out how dire things are, and then she gets them back on track. So she says this. She says, unless we figure something out, first contact is going to be us crashing into that planet. And then she says, okay, that's enough existential dread. Let's get back to work. So I thought that was good. Jennifer saves Mariner. So, here all this time, Mariner's, acted like she hates this girl, but in a way, I think she's going to end up being, best friends with her, or she'll be, one of best friends anyway, going forward. I loved Billups's outburst in the ready room about how good the California class is, and that their warp core is twice as fast as any other ship in the fleet. Yes, there was a lot of bleeps there, but I thought that whole thing was really funny.
Well, that was
spoken like a true chief engineer.
Correct. I was going to say that was his opportunity to give his defense of his ship engineer speech.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact, I absolutely thought it was hysterical that we haven't had, 3 or 4 words at a time out of old Andy during the rest of the series, but talk smack about his baby. What did you get?
Yeah, I mean, we've had more with Billups. Certainly, we had more with the virginity episode, and
yeah, but not like this.
Yeah, and
this season for sure.
And we got some more. He got some good lines with Rutherford later on too. Like when he discusses like why he's getting the errors, and he's, makes a very observant thing to say, and something that makes you think, okay, well, Billups is a virgin, but that doesn't mean he's not inexperienced when it comes to life. You know what I mean? Like he gets it. He's just he's just celibate. That's all. I wrote this down. Shax, something he said. He says, "We need all volatiles deeper in the ship. Nothing else explodes around here unless I'm the one blowing it up." I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
We'll go more into this later. In fact, I moved part of my yes to respond to a no on this subject. But the Rutherford intrigue, so it wasn't an elective. So why did he get it? Was he forced to get it, or was he in need of it for some reason? And we see a reflection of how Rutherford looked before getting the implant. He didn't even look the same. Like his skin color, for example, was different. Like it looks like his, like I don't know what you would call Rutherford and how he looks now. Like, he looks mixed race or something like that. But he clearly looked like a Caucasian person before, and now he doesn't. So maybe that was the whole thing was done to not just did they put the implant on there, but they try to disguise him, like so he wouldn't be recognized by people that know him. I don't know, but it's curious.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing, well, no, I guess I already mentioned about Mariner being reminded by Boimler, Rutherford and Tendi that they're her family.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's it. So other than the one I moved to the nose, let's go to the nose.
No!
All right. Our first no comes from Brian from Colorado. And he says, I don't have any criticism except that I don't understand how Starfleet went from wanting to give Freeman a promotion to arresting her. It just didn't add up. I won't deduct from my rating because we're only halfway through the story. So I'll get resolved in season 3, episode 1.
Well, and this is the part that I put in the nose. So this is what it was. Now, he says, I didn't understand how Starfleet went from wanting to give Freeman a promotion to arresting her. It didn't add up. Well, I think you might have missed something. We see that flashback, that memory that Rutherford shouldn't have. And I distinctly noticed it. One of the people that was talking there, the first person, that was the same person that arrested Freeman. That was the same voice. I'm certain of it, 100% positive that it was. So, makes me wonder if this is like Section 31 involved here. Yeah,
that's what my thought is.
Like, I am 100%. I'm going to put my flag on this now. And I realize that a year from now, I may be eating crow, but that was the same person. I know it. I know it. So.
All right, your cards are on the table.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have no way of knowing it, but I'm just saying I heard that same voice. I listened to it more than once because I was just like,
yeah,
could it be anybody else? Like, nope. I listened to that part 10 times. It's the same guy. It is the same guy. Same voice inflection, same everything. So, all right. Wes from Minnesota, he says, Freeman keeping a promotion away from her crew, and especially Mariner sowing seeds of dissent. I have no disagreement with you on that, Wes. I thought that was not smart of her to do. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, we've got some feedback from William from the internet who says, to Captain Freeman getting arrested for a crime she didn't commit. Instead of enjoying her first contact mission, she is escorted off the ship in front of her crew. No to Ensign Rutherford unknowingly being programmed. And finally, he says no to freaking cliffhangers.
And I saw, we don't have it written in here, but I saw Wes respond to that and say to each his own. And, I know a lot of people don't like cliffhangers, and I understand why they don't like cliffhangers, and especially when in this day and age, it's you're not waiting, 2 or 3 months for the cliffhanger. Now you're waiting, 10, 11 months. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that part of it definitely sucks, but I do love a cliffhanger. I mean, to me, that's just, makes you want to watch the episode that much more when it comes back. And in the case of Lower Decks, I think that is going to help the show. People are going to pick up the show as the, time goes on. They're going to pick up the show when Picard, season 2 comes back, when Discovery comes back, and they're going to watch it, since they have access to it, and they're going to be, cliffhanger. And they're so I just think it's good for the show.
Yeah.
That's my take.
I think the whole cliffhanger, because it was a surprise to me that I was like, but it was also like in that same kind. I don't know. It felt the same as like cliffhangers that we've seen watching Trek shows. That I feel like it's like it signals to me of a change of like what they're thinking about, like of like this isn't just a like self-contained season, that we're actually getting kind of like more like something that might happen in season, like the story arcs that like that go throughout the whole entire season, while like every episode will be not necessarily about the whole bigger picture, but then there's the bigger picture. And to me, I welcome that.
Like, it's probably worth.
That's why I watch Voyager and stuff like that. It's like because there's the whole like 7 seasons of like this whole bigger story.
Like, I think Discovery, and it seems like Picard, but Discovery for sure has had this like, we're going to tell a story over the next 15 or 14 or 13 episodes, and it's going to have a beginning and an ending, and it doesn't go much beyond that. But it seems like Strange New Worlds and now this show are kind of going back to our old ways, and hopefully I don't know, but hopefully Strange New Worlds, when it comes back, episode, I think it's just got 10 episodes, when it comes back, episode 10 is going to be continued, and we'll get something to come back when it comes back. So,
well, the big complaint everybody's made about quote unquote new Star Trek is that, it's so serialized. It's so serialized. We want episodic Trek. Well, Lower Decks has been pretty episodic, and now we're getting what you get with an episode series. We got a cliffhanger.
So, LT, I believe you are the only one that has any written no's. So let's go to you with the no's.
Well, I just had to. To me, they were no's. They weren't enough to count all 4, but they're still no's. And my first no, since we've talked about Rutherford's remembered, forgotten memory, it's an old theme that we're also familiar with if you've listened to the podcast and watched the shows. Eye trauma. What is it about this freaking writer's room across the board at Secret Hideout that they like messing with eyes? When I saw the thing show up with Rutherford, I went, eye trauma.
Here I was, I muted myself, and I'm pouring a Pepsi Zero. Like, I gotta respond to this. But my I'm from the area of North America that calls it pop, so so sue me. So here I am pouring my pop, and it's like, oh, I gotta respond to this. So yeah. It's funny. It's funny. Very funny.
Okay, my next one is, it must be a Mariner Freeman family trait to not let people finish sentences. And it was really funny, but when the captain and Beckett are talking to each other, that it was just, just they kept cutting each other off, and I'm like, it must be tough talking around the dinner table or at family holidays. Now, we haven't seen Dad, but I'm assuming that he cut the captain off a couple times when they were talking. So,
well, I mean, the dad was in this episode
in the beginning.
Yeah,
in the beginning.
Yeah, we don't ever get to see much of him, and the way that he brought that up was very, very admirably and not very husbandy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be correct. And despite the fact we're all so happy about finally seeing cetacean ops, I would be remiss if I didn't say, so explain to me how the water stays in the hole when they're doing high G maneuvers, and if the grav plates fail, or if they lose power, or I mean, there's not a lid on it because you can't really have a lid because they've got to come up to breathe.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm going, you've got a big sump well in the center of your ship that's full of water. And I kept thinking, okay, so cetacean ops, we can go ahead and waterproof everything in there, but it's the same reason we have sonic showers instead of water showers. I keep thinking water, electronics, power systems, probably not a good thing.
Yeah, but then we just don't know.
No, we don't.
It's like the whole different kind of technology just for that room alone.
And I'm sure you could go ahead and say, it's the inertial dampeners. They have it set up with this special gravity field to hold the water in.
Transparent aluminum.
Yes.
Yeah. But like I said, you still have to get up to breathe air. If they were fish, that'd be different.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That is true.
Anyway, that was the extent of my nose.
No,
Because I just
well, thank you.
because I had to.
That was good. I was trying to find some no's, but then I saw what you had. And I'm like, okay, that works. I could do that. Yeah, I don't really have any. Yeah.
I don't really have any either that I can think of, but maybe something will come to me.
Well, there you go. I've fulfilled my job as a Russian judge.
Thank you, LT.
All right. So it's now time for our not good enough section.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
All right. Brian from Colorado says this complaint is for Paramount Plus. The show would not play for me on my TV, only the ads. I tried 5 times with no luck, and without my laptop available, I had to watch the episode on my phone's tiny screen instead, and I couldn't really read the Dolphins translation as a result. I'm not going to deduct for this since it's not the show's fault. I've never had problems, so I'm kind of like curious because I know, Brian, you've had problems with AMC's like app before, but have you had problems with Paramount?
In the past, but I did not get to watch this episode on my TV this time. So, but I was curious to see if anyone else had that particular problem. And I'm just going back and taking a look to see if anyone posted about it.
If anybody did.
Okay. Yeah. He did respond. I asked what I said was, I didn't get a chance to watch it on my TV this time, but I did want to see if anyone else had the problem. I asked him, what kind of TV/streaming box do you have? I've seen it perform differently on Fire TV Stick versus Android TV versus Roku versus Chromecast, for example. And of course, if you get it as a channel on your Amazon, that's also a different experience. So, he did respond. He says, it's an LG TV running the Web OS operating system.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
The Paramount Plus app there is acting up only for Lower Decks, not playing the content other than ads. Other shows work fine. I could try casting from my computer browser via AirPlay or Chromecast, but that's besides the point. It is besides the point. That and I don't dispute any of that. I have heard Fantastic Geek. That's a network, and they do a Lower Decks podcast as well as Picard and Discovery. And I have heard them criticize Paramount Plus quite a lot, saying that they've had some issues with the app, and I've had issues with the app in the past. I didn't get a chance to watch it this way. What about you guys?
I was going to say,
I think
sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was saying I think I can be like the same where it's like in the past that I remember having some issues and I was watching on a Roku and I was also streaming it off of like on my phone, but like using like a connector to stream it to my computer or to my TV. But that was like, yeah, that was a long time ago. And of course, it's been updated since. So it's like, and I've never had a problem after that. So, and I'm mostly on Apple devices.
Well, and I have a Fire Stick for the TV and the Android app for my phone. And my only complaints with the app have been the things that we've all been complaining about, the tiny credits and the fact that they won't let you take screen caps. I haven't had a problem playing that, I was able to watch it on my phone quite easily, and then it played without problems on my home TV.
Now, the one question that I forgot to ask you, because I know you play it on the Fire TV stick, and there's two ways you can play it on the Fire TV stick, depending on how you subscribe to it. One way is if you get it through the, Amazon channels, and that way you can actually use the Amazon Prime Video app to play it through that way. And I believe even if you get it that way, you can also use the Paramount Plus app. So how do you
I have the Paramount Plus app because originally I had the All Access app.
Okay.
And whenever they switched, they downloaded an update and all the logos changed.
Okay. So you pay for it either directly through them or through some other means then, correct?
Yeah, I pay them.
Yeah. I consume it that way, but I don't pay them directly right now. Yeah, I mean, I've had the issue in the past. I didn't get a chance to watch it that way this time. I watched it two different ways. This time I only got a chance to watch it twice. First time was on my phone, which I used to be on Android. Now I'm on an old iPhone 7 Plus. And I didn't have any problems on there. And then the second time I watched it on my Windows 11 computer, and I ran that through Edge because for whatever reason, Edge doesn't seem to have the jumpiness that for whatever reason, maybe I have too many extensions installed in Chrome or I have too many browser tabs open, but it doesn't play as smoothly in Chrome, even though I know behind the scenes it's the same technology. But anyway, so I watched it on Edge and watched it on my monitor, which is actually a TV. So,
when I've watched it on my computer, I used Firefox and it was fine.
All right. Wes from Minnesota is next. He says, first, the Dolphins. They were funny. I enjoyed what they said. Jen is not a jerk like I thought she was. She actually cares. She apologized for her behavior, and I'm glad they made up. Tendi being fast-tracked to senior science officer training was pretty cool. Can't wait to see where that goes. So, great.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Carol from Washington, D.C. is next. And she said, why exactly were the clamps to release the outer hull panel underwater? Because well, that's just the way it works.
That was just where it ended up.
See the spot the references section. That's why.
And finally, we have William from the internet who says, Admiral Freeman doesn't interact with his own daughter, Ensign Beckett Mariner. Can someone please explain to me why Becky's last name is different than her parents'? Who programmed Rutherford and why?
Yep. We'll find out.
Yes, we will.
To be continued.
To be continued.
The hell is it? I thought I knew where it was, unless I accidentally took it off the...
I was waiting in breathless anticipation for shock horror.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find.
Oh, no.
That's okay. I should be able to find it. Just, oops. Hold on.
Dun, dun, dun.
There we go. I don't know what I think it got removed somehow off the soundboard. Somehow I accidentally removed it
Soundboard.
because it is not there.
Oh, probably just a.
And I keep wanting to do the voice over guy from the old Batman series.
Oops. I was trying to change the color on it. Although that's somewhat appropriate.
Just so I can go, the answer to these and other burning questions will be revealed next season. Same Trek time, same Trek channel.
That would be awesome.
Anyway. All right. So we have our own not good enough.
Yeah, and mine, because it's because I wasn't quite in the know and LT schooled me and that. So, but I think what's not good enough is like, I'm just going to say that I'm like, if they're going to bring up like these like little like, Easter eggs, like the rubber ducky room, then I want to see those. I'm glad that we got to, get the Cerritos ops and all that stuff that like we've never seen on the main show or like on the real show and all that stuff, that because they are a animated series, it's like they have much more freedom to do things. And so I'm looking forward to being able to see these off limit places like the rubber ducky room.
See, I have a theory now that they've shown cetacean ops. They're like, well, what other weird place, have people requested to see over the years? And it's like all the rubber ducky room. So let's bring that up now. And then for the next season, people are going to keep bringing up the rubber ducky room,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they can just show it as like they could be walking through it, like to get it to like the other side of the like hall or something. And I don't know. It's fun. I'd like to see
why do you have a rubber ducky room? Well, because the Mark V replicators can't duplicate rubber duckies. They're far too complicated, so we have to carry a supply.
Funny.
All right. Okay. LT.
Well, I just have to say it. Wes, Brian, they're beluga whales. They're not dolphins.
And I only got that after like you said it and I changed it in my notes.
The only reason that I think it's funny is because I was listening to some other podcast and it was like, and the dolphins, they're beluga whales. We're doing that. And the dolphins, they're beluga whales. So somehow that just struck a nerve with me. So I just felt like I had to say it.
All I have to say in defense is I'm not from here. Anyway, yeah, I mean, once you said beluga whales and I took a look at it again, it's like, okay, yeah, I know dolphin has a pointy nose,
pointier nose.
Yeah.
I think that's a thing you do because we're all just like, your first thought is going to be dolphins because dolphins are just kind of like a more common thing that you see in a situation like this.
The funny thing is,
and you didn't, I mean, it's not like you said it on purpose. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Yep. The funny thing is, I mean, dolphins and porpoises are whales. They're just kind of called something else. They're like part of the whale family. So I didn't even realize that until I started looking at that. So,
yep. Okay. The next thing I had for not good enough is more like just a question. When Ransom was taking the joystick in his hand, because we know that there's nothing like the feel of a hot joystick in your hand. Why is the control joystick on the Exo's chair and not on the helm console?
See the spot, the reference
Yeah.
section coming near you.
Okay. So I had a 99-cent gripe about when Mariner was floating away. At one point, you see her dragging her fingers across the deck. Now, just me, being the way I am, I'm saying, okay, if she can touch the deck, why didn't she just push on the deck? At that point, because she's in free fall, she would have rotated on the center of her mass, which means her feet would have come down. And if her feet would have come down, her magnetic boots would have clamped her onto the surface of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking it's more like in gravity and she's being blown out of the airliner and she's scrabbling for purchase. Well, she's in 0G. She's in free fall. So if she could have just pushed down, she could have rotated on her center and her feet would have come down first and she could have clamped herself to the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And in case you want to say, well, excuse me, sir, the reason they took the hull plating off was so that the ship wouldn't have magnetic attraction. Well, if that's the case, with the outer hull stripped off so the ship wouldn't be magnetic, then how did Jennifer's mag boots work? So if you're going to ding me for why didn't Mariner flip herself around and just clamp her own boots down? So how about that?
Well, I think that's a rhetorical question.
Rhetorical, okay?
And if you don't get that one, that's a Walking Dead reference. But yeah,
It's true.
well, I mean, I'd have to go back to it, but like when she does that, does she clamp back onto the hull, or is it one of the plates?
That's still there. Yeah, I think I thought it was one of the plates that were still there. They were,
She was clamped onto something, but I'm just considering that I had to go deep for the nits that I was picking on this one because they were small.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
I had a not so small, not good enough. And that is, I don't think Lycia Naff's done a lot of voiceover work because I didn't find that her voiceover work was quite as good as some of the other people we've seen. It just, I don't know, maybe it was just her natural voice. You know, I don't know, but it didn't seem, she didn't seem to like have a voice of authority to me, you know? And I thought as the episode went on, she got a little better. And I may look into her and I may be completely wrong about what I'm saying here, but that was just the take that I got is that she's not as used to doing voiceover work as some of the other people on the crew are. So,
Well, and I would say that she was understated,
yeah.
that at least for, and I hope I don't pronounce his name too badly, but Fred Tatasciore that does Shax, he does a lot of voiceover work, and you can tell because he has that professional voice artist inflection, that he is very animated in the way he speaks. And sometimes I won't say it's a little much, but you can tell that he is very much into the part. And I would just say that you're probably right that she doesn't do a lot of voiceover work, but I took it as very calm and understated, and I didn't notice it that much. But you're probably right. I don't think she does a lot of voiceover.
Well, here's the funny thing. When I just looked her up, the first thing that comes up, like when you pull her up in just in a search,
Yeah.
it says Lycia Naff is an American dancer, actress, and journalist. So, you know, but anyway,
Yeah.
I was curious. And I guess
All right.
her first role was Dancer on Fame.
I could see that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Considering that she had the big curly hair in the 80s.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, she hasn't. Looks like. Yeah, it looks like she hasn't done any acting since 2008. This is like her first thing since. Although she's listed on a podcast series. Oh, she's listed on a podcast series, but I think I know that podcast series. It's Trek Untold. So she was probably just a guest on there. That's why she's listed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I believe that is it for our not good enoughs. Let's move on to our open hailing frequencies and get to our feedback section. Okay. So we have 3 voicemails again this week. So our first, rounding out his perfect 10 out of 10, is Jeff X Force 11.
Hello, Star Trek fans. It's Jeff X Force 11 leaving my feedback for First Contact. This was so cool. Actually getting to see Cetacean Ops for the first time on screen was pretty cool. And I really liked the teamwork of everybody in this episode. I loved seeing the crew of the Cerritos working hard together and taking it old school to save the day. And I just really appreciated how we closed out this season so well, and yet we have got things to think about and move on to with next season. And I really just hope that they can have more of the consistency that they've had the last couple episodes next season, whereas it isn't such up and downs as they had somewhat in this season. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see next fall, I guess, what season 3 is going to look like. All right, those are my thoughts. X-Force is out.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff X Force 11, for your feedback again this week.
And thank you so much for keeping the streak alive.
So, anybody have anything to say about what he said?
No,
No.
I think what I was saying earlier was the fact that it was like I think that they're starting to find a little bit of their footing, or at least I'm hoping so, because I kind of agree. It's like, if we were, not that every episode has to be a 10,
Yeah.
but to be somewhat in the same kind of like, it's a fun episode. There's a little like fun little Easter eggs that, you know, I don't know. It's like these, why is it that we have to wait until the last 3 to be like blown away? You know?
Yeah, there does seem to be a pattern there where, you know, and we get where like the middle, you know, 3 or 4 are kind of like, or, you know, some people love them and some people don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you are studying for exams, you get in good study time at the beginning because you're awake, and you sort of struggle through the middle because you're getting tired and you're trying to, you know, keep your focus.
Yeah.
But then at the end, you've gotten your second wind, you've got lots of coffee on board, so you do better.
And then the adrenaline kicks in and
Yeah. and I have to agree there that it would be nice if we could get the same consistency throughout the season.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you know, there were a couple points in the middle where it's like, I like it, but it's not quite as good as the first one or the first 2. And then the last 3 have just been incredible.
well, you know, I don't need consistency per se, but I need semi-consistency. So what I need is like let's say 6 or let's say 5 9s, 2 8.5s, and 3 10s. or I'll get greedy and I'll say 7 9s and 3 10s. I want to keep those last 3 as 10s because they'll make me coming back for more every time. But I would like to see, some of those middle episodes have just basically been a slog. It just haven't really liked them that much. And I mentioned it when we were covering it at the time. It's just not.
Yeah.
I'm just not feeling it right now. And I know.
Yeah.
It was that way with episode 7. I said it then. It's like I'm not really feeling it right now, and I'm hoping that's going to change. And he said it was going to change, and thankfully, it changed. And now I have to deal with a cliffhanger, and hopefully I'll be thinking about this show a lot over the next number of months. I mean, the thing that I like so much about this show so far is it seems like we don't have to wait as long for it compared to other shows. Like Picard and Discovery, for example, every time it seems like we have to wait more than a full year. I think this next time I have to look to see when season 3 started, but it's closer to a full year than it's ever been. But it's still have to wait.
We have to consider the advantages of an animated show that
compared to
if they have to reshoot a scene, they don't have to find the actors, get the actors to the set, rebuild the set.
Right. They don't have to deal with location issues and all of that.
Right.
The only thing they have to worry about is in case there's something came up in post, they may have to re-record someone. So,
and that can be pretty much done anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for our feedback from Jeff. Again, you sent in audio feedback, all 10 of our episodes this season. Thank you so much. And I know that streak goes beyond this show into Discovery and Picard. And we appreciate everything that you do. So, and I know you're a Patreon supporter as well. So thank you so much, Jeff. We really appreciate your support. All right, let's move on. And we now have feedback from Dwight Berman.
Hi, Brian, Quayle, Lieutenant, and my best girl, Mary Lou. Oh, gosh, I feel so much better now that you called last week because I missed you. I thought I did something wrong the week before, Mary Lou, and I was very disheveled by this. This is Dwight Berman for the Lower Decks podcast, and I am reporting this week on the first contact. I thought that was a typo at first because it was first. There's a redundancy there. I don't know why they do that. I still don't understand why these guys name these things like this. It's kind of goofy, but I guess it's a cartoon, so it's funny. Anyway, so I have to give this one 11. Wait, like Jadzia Dex? Who the is that? I don't know who that is. Excuse my cursing. That was taken from the text from the show, but there was no beeping on my voice. So you can beep my voice if you would like in post. Thank you very much. I was a little premature with my 10. I get told that a lot that I'm premature by people, if you know what I mean. So I had to break the scale on this episode and give it the 11. This one's new favorite. So yeah. And Tenderford, they actually had a pretty good amount of screen time this time. I was very happy. Their plot was fun. They even both had their own crises to solve. Tandy with thinking she was gonna get kicked off the ship, and Rutherford having the glitches because his memory was too full and he needed to delete all his redundancies, kind of like the redundancy in the title. And, she likes the Tandy. I think they need to get together. Sometimes I need to delete my redundancies, if you know what I mean. And then what was going on with the ensign on the Archimedes there? Did her and the captain did they like each other and want to get down like a couple of dirty Dr. Magatos at the end of Event Horizon or something? Or did she have some devious plans for the captain? Because she gave a kind of a weird look at one point too. That I don't know what happened with that. I got kind of confused, and that one didn't really go nowhere. So I don't know what's going on there. And then we had the Cerritos got naked. It was a naked starship. I've never seen such a thing. That's got to be a first on the Star Trek with the naked starship there, where the ship had its clothes off with the hull plates gone. It's kind of neat. I thought that was kind of nice. And then, and in the cetacean ops there, how did Kurt Kimelo and Matt get Bimini out of the piping in the crustacean ops? They were complaining that they couldn't release the thingamadoo with their flippers, but don't they need hands to get him free to do that too? Maybe it was the koala that freed him. I don't know. And so that was my take on that. I don't know. And then, Shax he's a pretty aggressive guy. He's just like, I'll kill you to the Starfleet security people. I think I may want to hire him as a bodyguard from my boss. He might need the sensitivity training though. And then I guess that Jennifer was kind of thinking about the Mariner every day with her little butt for a while, huh? She thought that she didn't like her, so she was mean to her. It was nice to see, though, that they made friends. Maybe they, maybe, I don't know. Maybe she could be part of the new Lower Deck group there along with Talin and all that. Maybe next season, I don't know. And then it was also nice to see the Mariner let her defenses down a little and apologize to her mom, realizing that she wasn't the Kirk type. And I hope Freeman is gonna be okay. That was real suspenseful ending. The season, excuse me, I can't talk. Oh my goodness! Oh, I got the vapors now. Oh, let me start that again. I said I hope this. Still can't talk. The words is hard today. I hope Freeman is going to be okay. That was real suspenseful with the ending on a cliffhanger like that. Who's going to be like the interim captain? I don't know with that one. And that Mandel guy from Starfleet Security. Did anybody else notice that he kind of looked like Howie Mandel? I wonder if they did that on purpose. I don't know, just something that I observed when he introduced himself. Anyway, who do I owe the black licorice to? I know, Lieutenant, not to you. I will give you the wild cherry Twizzlers. If it was you that called the Mary Lou for the Dwight man, and or Brian, I will give you the black licorice. Quail, I don't know if you said that you liked the black licorice or the wild cherry Twizzlers or what you said you liked. But whoever, I owe you guys some nice reward for giving the Mary Lou a call and having a call at the station. Okay, anyway, that's enough. I'm babbling now, and this is Dwight Berman reporting for this season finale of the Lower Decks, and I love you, Mary Lou.
Well, thank you so much. You're making me work, Dwight. Now I have to do editing. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Just so you know, the bleep that you're going to hear was not present in what he said. So anyway, hadn't noticed the Howie Mandel thing, but perhaps, I don't know. Did you guys notice?
No,
Well,
no.
but I would say he didn't shake hands with anybody. So.
Yeah, that could be.
Well,
that could be a thing. And I stand by what I said earlier about him.
yeah, there's something fishy going on.
Yeah.
I have to go back and rewatch that scene.
Yeah. And so okay, we didn't really talk about this. So what happened there? I mean, the destruction of Pakled Planet. I mean, who did it? Do you guys have any thoughts about who did it?
Of course I do. I think the Pakleds did it.
That's what I was about to say too. It's like they probably did it and did it to themselves.
We need a new thing. It doesn't work anymore. The boomer's broken.
Yeah. These don't work anymore. This boomer won't work either. Let's try the boomer.
And probably and tossed it into the hole that they're drilling into the center of their planet.
The part that I just thought of, other than you almost had your Pakled was almost get to the chopper while he's looking for it. Given the fact that the Pakleds are so technically incapable, I'm more brought to mind.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
Okay.
Yes. Well, like I was saying, it reminded me of that old Looney Tunes cartoon when they put Bugs Bunny to work in the ordnance factory, and he's got the little hammer and he's tapping the fuses of the bombs, and if it didn't go off, he writes dud on it.
Oh,
I can just imagine these two Pakleds going, this boomer package is too large. It needs to be smaller. How do we make it smaller? Hit it with a hammer, clonk. I could just see they've got this, and I can't remember what kind of bomb it was. It wasn't.
It started with a V.
Yeah, but they've got some illicit Klingon explosive device, and we know that they're not the brightest crayons in the box.
Right.
And the Klingons gave them a new bomb, and then the Pakleds ran away. I just expect that they took it home and it blew up.
It's a Veruvian bomb.
Veruvian bomb.
Yes. Veruvian.
And the fact that their excellent Pakled spy had all of his swag from the super secret gift shop. I just think it's a coincidence. And they're they're playing politics and trying to make the best of a bad situation, because I'm sure the Klingons are not going to say, "Oh no, it was one of our rogue captains."
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, I mean, they could be trying to blame Freeman on it, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it just depends on
like how they want to play it.
I mean, come on. Just imagine Gowron giving you the crazy Klingon eyes going,
yeah,
the Federation will hear of this. Glory to you and your heart.
And it's funny, because I was thinking of Gowron today, and how sometimes he was a good guy and sometimes he wasn't a good guy, and he would kind of play both sides against each other. So it's possible that he might do this, but he's dead. I mean, Worf killed him a few years before this happened, so maybe it's Gowron's brother. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying that in that light, maybe the Klingons are trying to play a little 4D chess there. Maybe the rogue captain giving the Pakled arms was not so rogue.
Maybe.
So we've got a bucket full of possibilities there. I just don't. Of the many things that I think Captain Freeman would be capable of doing, conspiring with the Pakleds or conspiring with the Klingons against the Pakleds is not quite it, because I know she doesn't like the Pakleds, but I don't think she likes the Klingons either.
Right,
Definitely.
right. It doesn't.
So,
Well, that's why we have
Yeah.
to wait until.
or maybe taking her into custody is going to be a subterfuge so she can put on the black onesie again and do some sort of special ops mission.
It's funny that you mentioned that. That is another possibility as well, you know.
Yeah.
And for that matter, if I'm right about what I said, the fact that it's this guy, the same guy, maybe it's going to be Rutherford's implant that ends up saving Freeman, and brings the evidence that's required. I don't know.
Like the,
Yes.
can you fly a Romulan bird of prey? I can load it in my implant.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do get the feeling that Section 31, seems to be something that would appear at some point. And this is hitting all those buttons. So it's kind of like, okay, I guess we'll see.
I agree.
And as much as I hate to say it, they love Section 31 as much as they love the mirror universe. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Could be just.
All right. So unless anyone's got any more about Dwight's feedback, let's move on to our final voicemail. And that is our star of this season, none other than Mary Lou.
Hello, Brian and Kyle and LT. This is Mary Lou, and I'm calling about the season finale of Star Trek Lower Decks on Paramount Plus. So anyways, I enjoyed this season. It was a cartoon, so you can't take a cartoon too seriously. And that's why, when they arrested Captain Freeman, I decided that I was not going to be upset. And I'm actually not that anxious for the next season to see what happened, at least. But I am excited because it is kind of funny. And I think that Lower Decks has figured it out how to be funny and, make me laugh. I think that I'd like to see some episodes with some of the next generation aliens, like the Packlefts, or it'd be nice to see some Lower Decks episodes with the Binars, or, Lower Decks is a good one to have those episodes that deal with the not major races that won't have interplanetary conflicts. And, it's a nice way to have non-stressful, light-hearted conflict between races, And I'd predict that over the next season of Lower Decks, or 2, or 7, that, I predict that we're going to see Wesley Crusher and the Traveler, because that's always drove me crazy. And, get some resolution with that. It would make me feel good, Oh, Dragon's Blood. That was funny. Very funny. Because, their science is magical in this sex planet. That he's a prince. Boimler just drowned. That makes me sad. That Boimler just drowned. I'm sad. Oh, wait. He's fixed. His blowhole needs fixed. Don't let him dry out. Spray him with water. I'll talk to you guys next year when Lower Decks comes out. Or maybe for Prodigy. Hi, Dwight.
I have a feeling you just made Dwight's night.
Yep.
So, thank you so much, Mary Lou, for all of your voicemails this season. Look forward to talking to you again when Lower Decks comes back. So I won't be on Prodigy, and neither will LT or Kyle unless you guys go on there at one point to guest.
Mm-mm.
But that'll be Kim and James doing the podcast. So just remember
It's a good show.
Mary Lou and Dwight, if you do call in there, just remember it's a show for kids. So
The answer is it's a podcast for kids, so comport yourselves appropriately.
yes, it is a podcast for kids. It is covering a show for kids. So, don't
Don't get the vapors.
and don't say anything that needs to be censored. So, anyway. All right. So did bring up a couple things though that we didn't talk about, like the blowhole, and I caught that on the second watch after I heard your voicemail about the blowhole and put water on him. That was what the beluga said to revive him. So I thought it was funny. Do you guys have any other anything else that you want to discuss before I go into the spot the references section?
No, sir.
Nope.
All right. So the spot the references section. First thing I'll talk about is the title itself. It is a throwback to, of course, the very first episode of the show, season 1, episode 1, Second Contact. So in many ways, first contact is second contact in a way. It also, of course, reminds me of the season 4 episode. I didn't get the episode number I meant to. First Contact of TNG. And of course, the movie Star Trek First Contact. And there are a few other references to that movie in this episode. So,
Well, and many references to First Contact in the series as a concept.
yeah, definitely. So Sonia Gomez, if you don't remember her, she was in 2 episodes of TNG. Season 2, episode 16, Q Who? Q Who is, of course, the episode where Q introduces them to the Borg, and that's the one where she spills a coffee on Picard.
Incorrect.
Hot chocolate, please.
We don't ordinarily say please to food dispensers around here.
That Q wipes away, and that's something that when she says to the young ensign, when she tripped, and she said, well, I've done far worse to far more intimidating captains. Well, that's of course what she was talking about. Now, and then Samaritan Snare, in a way, is kind of also a bit of a coincidence because, of course, at the end we get a Pac-Led tie-in. That was the episode that we meet the Pac-Leds. That's season 2, episode 17, Samaritan Snare, the very next episode after the Q episode. So now her ship is the Archimedes NCC 83002, which I thought incorrectly that it was Excelsior class, but the Enterprise B variant, and that's wrong. And for that, my co-host LT will give me the assist.
According to what I saw, it's the Obina class.
Yes, the Obina class. And how did you determine that? Like, what you noticed some differences that I didn't notice.
Well, when I was looking at it, Somebody said, "Oh, it's an Excelsior," and we've seen the Excelsior still in service. Well, looking at it, there's some key differences. While the secondary hull looks very Excelsior-like, the primary hull is oval. It's or more Sovereign class shaped, if you will.
Okay.
Where a proper Excelsior has a nice round saucer. The second thing that I've noticed were that the nacelles were very much Sovereign class nacelles, as opposed to your classical sort of next gen shaped nacelles on the Excelsior.
Right.
They were very much a flat oval.
Right.
One of the big things that I noticed was the nacelle struts.
Right. That's just a big difference.
Yeah, because if you look at the B model Enterprise, which was the Ambassador class, and no, that's right. Sorry, C model was Ambassador.
Yeah,
the B
C model.
The B was an Excelsior, but it had the little fat wings on the secondary hull.
I don't know if it ever got its own class name or not. I've never seen it mentioned that it was a different class, but it is certainly a variant of the Excelsior. The color's different, and it's got those flanges, almost like tail fins.
Well, the big thing about the Obina is if you look at the Excelsior, the warp nacelle struts are L-shaped, that they come straight down off the nacelle and then they're flat across the secondary hull. And for the Archimedes, the thing that I noticed is it has the more Enterprise, the more Constitution style, very much a sloped strut, so that it comes off the secondary hull at an angle.
Yeah. They're definitely a lot more Sovereign class, like both in the nacelles and the struts, compared to like in the Excelsior and the Enterprise B. The struts are almost shaped like a goalpost.
Yeah, like I said, they're very L-shaped.
Right.
And the other thing, the Archimedes, while it had that sort of rake to the secondary hull underneath, that it had that very sharp sort of curve at the back, it was a little bit thicker than an Excelsior. It wasn't quite shaped like the Sovereign, but it still had, to me, it had the dimensions of a more Sovereign, but it had the geometry of the Excelsior. But like I said, I'll say it again, I love that ship.
Yeah, I mean, and it's I love how different it is, even though in a lot of ways it looks so similar to what's come before, but it's different, and I like to see that. So yeah,
and I think that I would almost make an argument that it's got the style aesthetics of the Sovereign, but to me it also has more of the size of a Connie. So I just love the ship.
Yeah, and I'm gonna skip just one thing I wanted to say about Gomez for a second, and just since we're talking about ships, in this episode at the end there, we see two other California class ships. We don't see what kind they are. We see an Oberth class, like the Grissom in Star Trek 3. And we've seen those before in especially other episodes of like TNG, like for example, the Pegasus, that was an Oberth class. But we've seen them throughout, TNG and DS9. One of the ships, and I think it's the ship that the Starfleet intelligence guys are on, is a Nova class.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know the Nova class, that is like the USS Equinox from Voyager, the season 5 cliffhanger episode. That was a Nova class. So as you can see, it's a much smaller ship than even the California class. And it's I was like looking at him like, is that like the Equinox? And sure enough, I looked it up and it's like, yeah, that's the same class. All right. That is definitely the same class.
It's
I didn't see
another Nova class ship.
Yeah. So interesting. Getting back to Gomez, one thing that I found interesting, I mentioned in the yeses how she kind of gets into the existential dread and then turns it around and says, let's get to work. Well, if you remember from Q Who, she had a moment of existential dread and LaForge kind of snapped her out of it. And in this episode, we see her first officer and Gomez have a similar kind of discussion in her shuttle bay. So I thought that was interesting to see the growth there and that. So Boimler is making a Happy Freeman Day banner, like the Happy Picard Day banner that we see on TNG season 7 episode 12, the Pegasus, and Picard. We see in the archives season 1 episode 1 of Picard, Remembrance. And of course, later on, we see that he's changed the banner and instead it says Happy First Contact Day. So I thought that was funny. This is, again, something that LT had to provide the assist on and correct me. I'm slightly faulty this week. The weirdo with a riding crop. Here I was thinking it was, she was thinking like Picard's saddle. Well, and to say that's TNG season 6 episode 18, Starship Mine, but no, LT gave a better answer.
It was Captain Stiles, the first captain of the Excelsior from Star Trek V.
Star Trek 5 or Star Trek 3?
It was when they stole the Enterprise the first time.
That's 3. Yeah, that's 3.
I'm sorry. 5 is the whales.
No, 5 is the one.
Oh,
the
God,
Cybok.
come on. God, no. Yeah, why does God need a starship?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's 3. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I did so well, and then I thought...
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
But, yeah, Captain Stiles, and for the life of me, I can't think of the actor's name. I just knew that he played the lieutenant on Hill Street Blues.
Yes, he did.
I think.
Is it Sicking or Syking? Something like that? James B. Syking? Something like that.
But Captain Stiles carried a swagger stick that he was always walking around, like tapping it on his hand and walking around with it under his arm. And that was sort of his little affectation. So when they said weirdo with a riding crop, that's the first thing I thought of. Just like the time they said, get some weirdo replacement captain, and of course they had to throw Jellicoe in there. I forgot who I had the running Jellicoe gag with, but
yeah, I was right.
That might have been okay. Go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say I was correct. His name is James, and again, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but it is James Sicking, sometimes referred to as James B. Sicking. In Wikipedia, it just says James Sicking, but he is the guy, and yeah, that's what he's most known for, is his role on Hill Street Blues, and he was on there definitely for a long time. He was also on Doogie Howser as well. So, but yeah, definitely.
He's one of those character actors that has a tendency to play a certain role.
Yeah. Kind of eccentric. And he definitely was an eccentric on Hill Street Blues as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, moving on. It gets mentioned about the all applaud after the captain walks off the ship for the last time. And, we've seen variations of this where either they're all like in a row somewhere, or they all stand at attention, or something like what happened in this episode where they're all there waiting for the captain to, leave. And of course she's leaving, but under much different circumstances than they were expecting. But some examples where we've seen this, Worf in TNG season 4 episode 26 Redemption, when he's leaving the ship to join the Klingon, I believe he was going to serve with Kern, his brother.
Yeah,
they did this. Pike in Discovery, and I believe this was season 2 episode 13, Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1. They don't go into line, but they all stand at attention as he's leaving the bridge. So,
right,
to me, it was similar. When Burnham is, coming on board the bridge for the first time, they all get into line like this, and that is in season 3, episode 13 of Discovery. That Hope Is You, Part 2. And I was wondering, and I didn't go back to look at this, but like, did Riker have a scene like this? I was thinking maybe he did in Nemesis, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I seem to recall it, but I didn't get a chance to go back and confirm that. So I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will play
Incorrect.
And if I'm correct, I will play
Incorrect.
I noticed that in the ready room is an old California flag. Now, the one thing I noticed, though, that made it different was it doesn't say California Republic under the bear. Because if you go back, the flags that you see have this thing that says California Republic on it. I imagine at some point they're going to take that off, because that seems a little, I don't know, insensitive. I don't know, but maybe I'm talking out of my butt.
Well, they've had it for a long time.
Yes, I know. I wrote this down. I agree with you at all times was something that Ransom says to Freeman. And of course, Picard says to Riker that he expects his first officer to carry out his orders at all times, but it is appropriate to question his orders in private. So I think Ransom being a bit of a butt kisser here is probably, not making him the best first officer he could be. So
right,
I thought I would bring that up. Watching the Trivoli Pulsar, that happened in season 1, episode 2, Envoys, if you don't remember it. She mentions, of course, Kirk when she says, "I'm a Kirk freestyle spirit who kicks butt," and it super intimidates people. And I think we've seen examples where Kirk super intimidates people, but I couldn't think of one. And I didn't get a chance to look it up. So, but I just thought I would bring it up. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but Freeman says, "You're not Kirk. Kirk was confident."
Yes.
Yeah.
Disengaging the outer hull is similar to what Picard, Worf, and Hawk were doing on the Enterprise E in Star Trek First Contact. And if I recalled correctly, one of the chambers, whatever, one of the, I forget what they called them, but controls got fused, and they had to basically do what they had to do another way. So
Right.
Wasn't that the deflector
it
dish
was,
though?
yeah, but but I'm saying that
But it was coming off the main
Yeah.
hull. That's
I wasn't saying that they removed the plates. What I'm saying is that the device that they had to, unlock
Right,
stuff
yeah,
was
like
exactly
how-
the same. I mean, it looked just
yeah.
and I remember they had to do this like weird thing where they, pulled the thing out and twisted it and then pushed it back in.
Twist it, yeah.
It was exactly the same. So
Yeah, and that made me question too. It's like, so every piece of hull plating is like done with this like they had to go to every single panel to do this exact same thing. But yeah, it was the same thing that was on first contact.
Well, it makes it easier to repair because then you just get, I need hull section 6, bin
I
1.
guess that makes sense.
Then you just pop it off and pop the new one on.
now I'm thinking about it. Where were the .7s?
Maybe California class doesn't rate .7s.
Of course, hopefully they're they .16s in 32nd century. So maybe they're up to .9s now. But anyway, my point being that you would think that there would have been something, to help. I hadn't even thought of it until this moment, but anyway.
Yep.
Slight inconsistency there. So we see several of the crew members in non-speaking parts. I just wrote down a couple of them. We see Miglimo. We see, and actually, in with him is Jet. What's his name? Manhaver or something like that.
Yep.
We see that Move It Along lower decks guy, and he was one of the judges in the ballroom dancing competition. We see the guy that just loves Ransom, and I couldn't think of his name. Not Jenkins.
I can't think of his name right now. Stevens.
Thank you for the assist yet again. Stevens. Yes, it is Stevens. Yeah. And there were others that I know that I saw. Can you think of any other characters that we saw in the background that?
Well, there was I already mentioned the Kazanti guy.
Right.
And I want to say he's either an ensign or a lieutenant junior grade, but he's always got the pronounced 5 o'clock shadow, and he looks like a young, thinner Sylvester Stallone because he's got black sort of wavy hair and he's got the chin.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, there's several other characters that didn't have any speaking parts, but we've seen them before. So just worth saying. The stripped down Cerritos looked a bit like the NX-01, I thought.
Yeah. Like I remember, seeing that, whatever. And something popped in my head, but I was like, what is it? But it's like, it looked cool, but I was like, it looks, familiar. And then you put this in the comments and I'm like, oh, that's right. I mean, I haven't seen Enterprise in like, I don't know how long, but, it looked almost like it.
Go ahead.
Sort of. I was going to say sort of, but it's nacelles down. And the NX-01 is nacelles. NX-01 is nacelles up.
Right. I wasn't really talking about nacelles. It was more the hull looked more NX-01 than the than it normally does. No, and of course not exactly. I wasn't inferring that it looked just like an NX-01.
No. I'm just saying.
It was just.
I just looked at it and said, ooh, that's kind of, because it had like these weird, like.
It's just, because it just looked more machiny and like, and rough instead of being like perfectly smooth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I could just imagine,
that was the point.
Like assuming this, like the texture map on this from a 3D perspective, I'm assuming that they didn't do all of the polygons to, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, sorry, this is just, but when they make a 3D object, they make a bunch of polygons, and they string those polygons together to make a shape, and they apply lighting and, of course, a texture, and there could be multiple textures, and they call it a texture map, and that's what they do to make a computer design look like it does. But anyway,
it adds that layer of depth and three-dimensionality.
Yeah. So a lot of times they'll use a texture map to give the appearance of more detail than there actually is in the polygons. Because I imagine that if they drew all of those like bumps, it would have, taken forever. So I'm imagining that a lot of it was just texture mapping. But anyway, okay. That is time for...
What is this bizarre segue that's happening right now? Can we maybe stay on point?
Yes, we'll go back on point. The joystick was a callback to Star Trek Insurrection, and it is Riker and of course, Riker at his first officer chair has the joystick. So that's why Ransom was operating the joystick. Why it's there, I don't know, but it is. So it was a callback to that. The implant, we already talked about this. I mentioned, reminded me of Section 31, reminded me of Schisms. Kyle, you mentioned that it reminded you of like some Voyager episodes too. I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
And of course, we get our first look at Cetacean Ops. I think the first time it was ever mentioned was in yesterday's Enterprise, in an alternate universe or an alternate timeline. It was mentioned after that, but this is the first time we actually get to see it. So very cool. Now, Boimler, a couple things that he addressed that refer to some things in the past. One from this show and one from the movie. So Kirk swimming to release the whales was in Star Trek IV, and it happened in much the same way that Boimler goes and releases the plate. So it was a very similar thing where Kirk had to go under and get to the thing and release it, and he's close to drowning there, and we see like a bubble or two coming from him, but he doesn't of course drown. So someone came closer to drowning in some episode, but it wasn't Kirk. So and I saw a koala. That was, of course, from this show, season 1, episode 4, Moist Vessel. And that was that one lieutenant that Tendi was trying to make friends with and like messed up his aura or whatever.
It was his ascension.
Yes, his ascension.
He was the ascension guy.
And yes, that's right. He was the ascension guy. And the universe, as he actually ascended, he said that the universe rests on the back of a giant koala. So that was what he was referring to. And that's it for my Spot the References. Considering how much time I had this week, this is probably nowhere near the full list, but this is the best I could do with the time that I had. So, all right, so let's move on. We're going to go to our Shipwide announcements. I didn't get a chance to see this, but thankfully, LT comes in for the assist again. There was an episode this week of The Ready Room, so you got a chance to see it. So could you tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, one of the things they did is they had the bridge crew on this episode. That the episode they had at the start of the season had all the lower deckers. Well, this time they had the bridge crew. So they had Dawn Lewis, Jerry O'Connell, Fred Tatascore, Jillian Vigman, and Mike McMahon. And they talked to them about things that happened during the season. And it's so much fun to have Will Wheaton asking the voice actors questions about, what did you think about the season? And what did you think about this situation? One thing they did that I really enjoyed is that if you saw the first Ready Room, they asked the lower deckers, this is your opportunity to spoil the season. Each of you give us a spoiler. And of course they bleeped, they blanked out what they said. Well, they actually played what they said on that first episode. So we got to hear all of the spoilers for the season. And of course, the one that Eugene Cordero said was Cetacean Ops.
Nice.
I figured somebody said it.
Yep. But it was a lot of fun. And after they had their conversation, which just as a side note, Mike McMahon is such a funny guy. And I have to, again, give him all the credit in the world for being such a big fan of Star Trek and bringing us this series. And I think he's funny when they're doing interviews because it's like he's so excited to talk about what he's doing, but he realizes he can't let the cats out of the bag.
Yeah.
So the other thing they had in the Ready Room this week is they showed another new teaser for Prodigy.
All right.
And it was pretty interesting. I think the big thing for me is that Prodigy is more of a 3D computer render sort of animation as
Very
opposed
much so.
to the classical sort of animation that we got with Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. I think this bit that they showed was a little more tease, a little more information. We got to see some of the primary characters doing a little speaking. So I am definitely interested to see what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's been quite a few clips there recently. I haven't seen this one. I'm assuming it's not the one that they had at Comic-Con, because they had one at Comic-Con too. But even if it was the same, we won't have to wait too much longer. So, and worth saying that if you are listening to this on one of the podcast feeds where you get Lower Decks, you will be getting Prodigy. There's going to be nothing for you to do, no new feed to subscribe to, but we will have a separate Prodigy feed, and that'll be for kids. So
okay.
So as far as we did get more New York Comic-Con news. For one thing, Robert Beltran will indeed be playing Captain Chakotay, not Commander or not Chakotay, Captain Chakotay, in the upcoming Star Trek Prodigy. So whether or not he and his ship will be, I don't know, looking for the protostar or something like that, who knows? But so that'll be interesting. I've heard that a lot of people thought he would never come back to Star Trek, so it's kind of interesting that he is coming back.
Yeah.
Joining him are Jason Alexander, which is interesting. Of course, he's been a guest on Voyager back. He played Kuros in the episode Think Tank, and I remember that. And of course, he's best known for playing George Costanza in Seinfeld. And the funny thing is, I just saw him was it last week on The Conners. So he's also playing a character on there, and he's playing like a minister. So
Yeah.
and to that end, what we were talking about with Prodigy, there were Prodigy and Discovery panels from New York Comic Con last weekend. The disco one was first, and they didn't do a back-to-back thing like they've done for other conventions. Instead, they did Discovery on Saturday, and then at the same time on Sunday, they did Prodigy. So they separated it, but I got a chance to watch the Discovery one that had, I think it basically had Sonequa Martin Green, the co-showrunner Michelle Paradise, Anthony Rapp, Wilson Cruz, Mary Wiseman, who else? Blue Del Barrio, and
The guy that plays Book.
and David Ajala. Yeah.
David Ajala.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a good panel, I thought. And, they seem to have a lot of fun on there. And there were a couple of times during the panel where they seemed to get pretty emotional. And I was trying to parse that. Are they emotional because it was so hard to shoot? Or are they emotional because what we're going to see is so good? Or is it a combination of both? It sounds like maybe both. So I know that Sonequa Martin Green, she praised Michelle Paradise very highly, and you could see it was heartfelt. Well, okay, she's an actress, but someone could argue that, but it seemed to me that she was really being sincere when she said those things. Moving on, we've talked about the IATSE strike. So they are continuing to negotiate, and if a deal cannot be reached, they will go on strike as of 12:01 a.m. Pacific time, Monday, the 18th of October. So basically this Monday coming up. William Shatner did indeed go up into space on October 13th, Wednesday, which was originally going to be Tuesday the 12th, but was delayed due to weather at the launch site. He came back down and to Earth and was very emotional, saying, "I hope I never lose this feeling." And we were talking about it prior to us recording tonight, and we were saying that he was pretty emotional about it, kind of taking it all in, and I don't know, I would feel the same way,
Yeah, that's something not very many people have
I realize
been able to see. But
I realize it's hard to say humble and Shatner in the same sentence, but I was impressed at what he had to say, after they landed.
Yeah.
Same here.
I've enjoyed the footage that they showed from inside the cabin, that the other three people were floating around and doing 0G and flipping around. And he reminded me of, a kid on their first road trip in the car. That the picture that got to me was he was just sitting there looking out the window.
Yeah.
And I would say that if you think about it, the man, like him or not, love him or not, he's 90, and he got a chance to go see the Earth from near orbit.
Mm-hmm. And good for him.
And after the old joke of, well, I only work in space, I'm from Iowa. Are you a spaceman? No, I only work in space. But I just, when he was talking about it afterwards and all the interviews he's given, it's really been sincere. And I think that he's he gets the fact that he's lucky that he's gotten to do this, and especially at his age.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Like you say, love him or hate him. I mean, I think. I mean, he's lived a good life. There's nothing you can say that would take that away from him. And if he never gets to do anything, if he dies tomorrow, no one can take this one away from him.
No.
And he, like I say, he's had a full life that very few people can have. Very few people can even come close to having just the lifetime of he's had years where he's struggled, years where he's been very successful, successful television shows, won the Emmy, had this lifetime long part that he played for over 25 years. Just what can you say about the guy? And now when he's 90, he's going up in near orbit, like you say. So you got to hand it to him.
I watched the flight, and just for my quick soapbox, I'm old enough that I remember when space travel was a big deal, that I still remember when I was maybe 5 and they canceled programs so you could see it was like maybe Apollo 14 or Apollo 15 launch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of got routine, and then it's like nobody was paying attention. But the good thing is, with the video streaming we have now, I enjoy watching SpaceX put satellites in orbit, and Rocket Lab, my new current favorite, putting satellites in orbit. But I watched the flight. I enjoyed watching it. I'm amazed at the technology that we have, that we can reuse the boosters, unlike what we've done previously, where it was one shot and done. That New Shepard went up, and we've come far enough that the booster landed on the circle in the ranch, and the capsule came down, the parachutes opened, the little landing drogue or the landing airbag deployed, and that we can reliably send people to orbit in equipment that we can fly again.
Yeah.
And that has computer guidance that can land the booster on like a tennis court.
Yeah.
After going 110,000 feet into space.
I kind of look at it a little bit different, in the sense of like, I mean, like William Shatner, like, love him or hate him. Like, I kind of don't look at it in that way. The way I took up from it was like, growing up with the space program, and all that. It's like our shuttles, like the name, like Star Trek, like the names of ships are being named the Enterprise, like Navy, like now, in the shuttle and stuff like that. And to me, it's like Star Trek, there's just this thing about it. It's not like Star Wars, and I don't care if I'm going to get any kind of haters or from whatever. It's different, but you don't get a whole lot of Star Wars named shuttles. Right. But with Star Trek, there's just this sense of like you're seeing kind of like a future that you can relate to, and actually like it seems tangible. And we start hitting these marks of where it's like, oh yeah, it's like this is this is kind of like, this is becoming a reality. And so it's like, I you look at like the iPhone and you're like, hey, that's like the pad that everybody has on every episode.
And it's funny because
Star Trek,
you bring up a good point. Like, you don't see technology inspired by Star Wars, not
no,
at least not to the level that you do with Star Trek. The phone, lots of the like medical scanner equipment,
right. And but
just all sorts of things, and like you even say, like naming ships, nobody's gonna call we don't hear of any rockets being called Millennium Falcon.
Right.
Well,
and like, that's the thing. And that's what I took from it. And it was that, okay, it is William Shatner who went into space and how amazing that is. But to me, it's like, I'm seeing another like Trekkie, like like sci-fi Trek, like, something you look and aspire, like, oh my gosh, that's the future, to where here we are now on the cusp of like, what's this going to be like in like 50 years, where going up into space is like, just like, oh yeah, I just jump over here. We talk about transporters, this and that. So I'm like seeing the captain of the Enterprise going up to space, and like what you were saying, LT, it's like, and the thing that he was doing was looking out at the window at the planet, and then he comes down talking about like, it's the planet, like, this is a beautiful thing, and like, I'm right at the edge, and not Jeff Bezos spraying champagne everywhere and going woohoo. To me, I'm like, I'm actually witnessing like our actual evolution of like space and like technology, and like what Star Trek to me gives, like that's what I love about Star Trek. It's like I can relate to everything I see on there, because it's like, it's about humanity, and it's about like, I don't know, like, strange new worlds, boldly going, where no one's gone before. It's so, to me, I actually like, it's amazing. I love it.
Anything that inspires technology to advance, anything that gives us a chance to innovate is a good thing. I don't necessarily look at the stink that people have made saying, well, Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, that this is all based off of their egos. I'm looking at it as, eventually, if we get the technology perfected and we start using it more, there's a chance for the colorblind, nearsighted kid who dreamed of going to space to actually go to space. Instead of the fact that, I understand.
Were you
NASA
talking about you there?
I'm talking about me, man. The fact that, sure, NASA is still going to have people who are, Air Force fighter pilots and Navy fighter pilots with engineering doctorates, and we're still going to have the brightest and best doing the heavy lifting,
right,
and going deeper and further and going to the moon and going to Mars. But if they can set it up to where some kid from North Carolina can buy a ticket to ride on, say, something like Starship One and get a 20 or 30-minute ride where they go up into near orbit and come back, I think it's a good thing. If we are able to use the technology to do the things they talked about doing in the 60s with near orbit transport going across country, that they said, well, if you're able to do near orbit transport, you can get to London in 30 minutes. And again, if we can get the technology right and make it safe and affordable, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So let's go on.
Yep.
Oh, and I guess the other thing is that not everybody was really happy with.
Yes. A certain bridge officer was not happy.
Was rather salty about it.
Yes. George Takei, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We know that him and Shatner don't get along.
Yeah.
And I was going, just let the man have his minute, George. Come on.
Well, like he called him a guinea pig or something, and it's like, okay, I get what he's saying and that, but I mean, just like you say, let him have his moment, and just it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah,
it is a good thing.
Like I said, play your cards right, and maybe Elon Musk will take.
Moving on, Strange New Worlds season 1 has finally finished filming. Now, there had been an announcement about this before, and that was originally that the main filming had been done, but they were going to have to go back and do some additional shoots. Well, now those additional shoots are done, and they are completely done with shooting. So Anson Mount just released a video saying thank you, and the season will be released sometime in 2022. They didn't say when, but we will be getting it sometime in 2022. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know, springtime, my guess, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't be like at the end of 2022, more the middle.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah. Want to thank Carol from Washington, D.C. for this one, because I did not see this one at all. The world premiere of Bryna Turner's At the Wedding will usher audiences back to the Lincoln Center Theater, or it says LCT3's Chair Toe Theater this winter. The new comedy will be running February 12th to March 27th, so, roughly 6 weeks. And starring in it will be Mary Wiseman. She will be releasing, leading the cast as Carlo, a lonely single woman who crashes her ex-girlfriend's wedding to a man. And the cast also includes Rebecca Samanga Frank, Karen Lugo, Carolyn McCormick, who I remember from she played Minuet on in Star Trek: The Next Generation. If you remember, the one that the holodeck, one that Riker fell in love with. Anyway, that was her. Will Rogers. How could he play in there? I thought he was dead many years ago.
I think this is not that Will Rogers.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And Han Van Sciver or Skeever or what have you? I don't know.
Han Van Sciver.
Han Van Sciver. I don't know. The last thing I wanted to bring up is, if you recall, the ending of last week's episode had rolling, behind the credits, we had a look at the Borg lower decks, and Paramount Plus has released a 1 hour repeating Borg lower decks ASMR video on YouTube and also Facebook, Instagram, Paramount Plus, StarTrek.com, I believe, and various other platforms. It's pretty funny, and also, like, I've listened to it for about 15 minutes. Didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but it's funny.
It makes me sleepy.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for our news this week. Kyle, why don't you tell people how to contact us? And I'm going to say the last part.
All right. Yes, the best way to submit your theories and feedback, you can go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text or audio. You can also call 216-232-6146 and leave a voicemail. Also email us at lowerdecks@talkthroughmedia.com. Or you can also post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, and you can find that at facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Okay, so there's a couple things about Star Trek Prodigy that you listeners need to be aware of. James and Kim will be hosting the show. The format is going to be different. Okay. So I just want to prepare people. Don't expect things like the yeses, the nos, and the not good enoughs. They're not going to follow that. We have not worked out what the format will be. They will take in feedback, but it may not be at the same level of feedback as we do. So I don't want people to complain about it. Just, I put it this way. My whole thing is I just wanted us to cover the show. And, to me, that's more important than being strict about a format. We had that on our previous network, and it was not fun. So to me, I think Kim and James should do the kind of podcast that they want to do, and I'm gonna just let them do it. So that's my take. Hopefully, you guys will understand. And they do a great podcast on Rebinge DS9. So it's probably going to be called something like Star Trek Prodigy by Rebinge It or something like that. But we have to work out that. We will, and you'll see something about it very soon. So given that there will be an email address set up, Star Trek Prodigy at talkthroughmedia.com, you will be able to use the feedback form. Again, that is not set up for Star Trek Prodigy yet. I will probably have that done by the time this episode comes out. I'm setting a deadline for feedback for Star Trek Prodigy for that first episode at the same day and time as Lower Decks, but it's subject to change. So we'll say it's Friday, October 29th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. They are on Pacific time, so they may push this back a little bit. So that would be good to give you guys more feedback. But again, they may do a shorter show, and they may not do as much feedback. So just keep that in mind. And again, I think I want to encourage those people that do a podcast on the network that I'm basically running, although it's all of us that run it, that want to give them the freedom to do the kind of podcast that they want to do. Yeah, I do not want to restrict somebody and say, you must do it this way. So,
yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right, continue.
All right. To support us, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek TTM. And a great way to support us is to also share us on Twitter and Facebook. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia. And there you can write a review. Share us on Facebook and retweet us on Twitter, especially when we post that the new episode is out. Subscribe to our Talk Through Media YouTube channel. That's where you'll find the new episodes before anywhere else besides Patreons. Subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or the podcast client of your choice. And while you're there, give us a rating or review. You can also go to podchaser.com, and that's a good place where you can rate individual episodes or the podcast as a whole. Another way to support us is through our Patreon. And we would like to thank our Patreon supporters, James Robbins, Kim Vogley, Brian Shiro, Christopher Leitner, Michael Carrier, Stephen Chambers, Jeff Gentry, Robert Kaiser, Clint McCollum, Mike, Trey Whipke, that guy over there, Lawrence Todd, and the Quail, which is me.
All of our episodes from Talk Through Media podcast can be found on the Talk Through Media all-inclusive feed, which also contains the Rebinge DS9 podcast that I mentioned earlier and The Walking Dead Talk Through. Speaking of The Walking Dead Talk Through, Kyle, LT, and I are doing The Walking Dead Talk Through right now, or at least we were. We just released an episode for the part one of the three-part season of the last season of The Walking Dead. It's 24 episodes this year, and we just finished episode 8.
First 8.
Yep. Comes back February 20th. So we are also covering right now The Walking Dead World Beyond. So this week we are releasing, or we just released, the season 11, episode 8 of The Walking Dead, and season 2, episode 2 of
World Beyond.
World Beyond.
Yes.
So next, or this week coming on Sunday, we'll be watching Fear the Walking Dead season 7, episode 1, and season 2, episode 3 of World Beyond. So that's what will be next week, and we switch our artwork and switch our name to Fear the Walking Dead Talk Through. And the next episode of the Lower Decks podcast, I don't know. We know it's going to be season 3, episode 1. We don't know the title. We probably can guess it's written by the showrunner again, Mike McMahon. It may be Jason Zarek again. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody else. We don't know the title, or sorry, we already said that. We don't know the description, of course. We just know the next Star Trek thing will be Prodigy. So, and then a few weeks after that, Discovery returns, and Ruthie and I will be here as well. So for a while, I should mention this, didn't mention this earlier. For a while, this feed that you're getting us on, you will be getting 2 episodes a week. Not just 1, but 2 episodes a week. One will be Prodigy, one will be Discovery. So again, if you don't like that, sorry. but Prodigy will have its own feed, but we want to keep it consistent, and essentially Discovery's become our Star Trek feed. So we want to keep it consistent and that'll have everything. But until next time, and I want to say before we say next time, Kyle, LT, thank you for being there and covering this great season of Lower Decks. We never officially called you co-host, LT, but I think it's safe to say that you're co-host. We'll have to make sure that,
we update the docs.
We have to update the docs and make sure. But I want to say it's been a hell of a ride, and you guys always make it fun. And I look forward to many podcast episodes in the future where we will be podcasting together. So
and thank you for allowing me to get my Star Trek on before I go back into the zombie apocalypse for the near future.
And a little tree by the road.
It's also worth saying that there's probably going to be some times when either Ruthie and or myself may need a sub because we're kind of expecting this to be a long haul where there's going to be many episodes in a row between Discovery and Picard and not Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. So we may need subs, and especially in February, both of us are going to need subs. So we'll be busy. So,
well, as I've said, being the Crash Davis of podcasting, I'm ready to go up to the bigs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kyle.
And I'm LT.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.